Welcome to Paris, a State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hey Marie, how are you today?
Hi Gail, I'm very fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Always busy, making my moves, jingling my keys, running about, answering emails. You know, the usual. Every now and then I get up and have a cup of tea or a glass of water, but and I'm sure your days are going the same.
Yes, pretty much the same, but it's a good thing, right?
Exactly. Well, I guess in our last episode, we discussed taxes, the different types of taxes and things like that have to be paid. And a question came up. You told me about this waste tax that an owner can charge back to the tenant. So we said that our next episode will be about that, charges that are recoverable from the tenant. So in French, it's called charges récupérables. Isn't that how we say it? Recoverable, recoverable, récupérable.
Yeah, complicated to say, but that's it.
or charge locative or something like that. That's the same, right?
Yes.
So anyway, so this episode, we're talking about recoverable charges. And Marie, what does that really mean? Like building charges, are they kind of like utilities or is it something different?
So when you own an apartment or a house or anything that is in a co-ownership, like you have several owners who are in the same thing, you will have to pay some utilities, or we say in French charges, in order to maintain the building, like to do everything in the building to make sure that it's in good shape and not only your own property. And a part of that is recoverable, like récupérable, and it's different from the utilities that the English-speaking people are talking about.
Like heating bill or my electric bill?
Yeah, but it's different, but it can be tricky, but it can also, for example, concern the heat. For example, when you have a system with a collective heat, for example.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, the charges récupérables are also known as their nickname charges locatives. And the best way to describe it and to understand them is to say that when the owner has expenses that directly benefit for the tenants, then they can ask to be reimbursed to the tenant.
Mm-hmm. I think I get it because actually where I live, it's got collective heating. So yeah, I have to pay for my heating, even though my owner is originally paying for it because it's collective in the building. But I still don't understand everything. So are all the building charges that the owner has to pay recoverable from their tenant?
No, not at all. For example, if you have like a roof renovation or they decide to set up an elevator in the building or they do a renovation of the facade, then of course it's the owner who has to pay. But when we talk about the cleaning of the common areas, for example, the light in the building and things like that, of course there is a little portion that the owner who is not living in the premises are not using directly. It's a benefit for their tenants. So this is part of the recoverable charges.
See, you even hate that word.
Yeah.
It's not fun in English or French. Recoverable, récupérable. Well, and then how does it generally get paid for then? Is that done like on a monthly basis, like a lot of normal utilities?
In fact, it depends. When you are an owner, you will be paying by trimester. It would be the syndic. With the syndic would be another team, who is the company that runs, that manage your building. They will send you a note every trimester, and you will pay upfront. The tenant, on his side, will pay on a monthly basis, and it will be with the rent. Like you will have a differentiation between the two. You will have the amount plus charges.
Okay. And yeah, just for those people that don't know, syndic, I guess the closest kind of term, or a thing that an Anglophone can relate to would be kind of like their homeowners association, or if they live in an apartment building, then the company, the property management company that takes care of all the building stuff. But in French, it's called the syndic. And we don't really like them because they get paid a lot of money to do not a lot of work. Oh, did I say that? No.
Yeah, no, you are not going to make friends among our colleagues who are doing also syndic along with the with
I'm
the tenant.
sorry, I lied. That was just a
No,
joke.
it's often a tricky thing, and it's true. But we'll talk about that. That often owners and tenants have great expectation on the syndic, and syndic you have good and bad, such as in the real estate agency and
Totally.
any field. But it's true that we often is the easy targets because it can make your life a nightmare when they do not do their job sometimes. But it's not always the same. It's
No, I have some syndics that take care of apartments where some of the flats are that I manage. And some syndics are so incredibly amazing. You send them an email and they get back to you within the hour. And I'm just like, wow. Or there's a problem, they send somebody right away. Yes. So they're not all bad. They're not all bad. So getting back on track to what we were talking about. So we were talking about the charges that the owner can go back, recuperate from the tenant. But how does the owner figure out the calculations for that? I guess they would need to provide some sort of documents to their tenants in order to justify what the charges are.
There is the way to the first question was how do they calculate this, because it's not something that the owner will do on his own, like I'm taking some math and I'm guessing that it's approximately this amount. No, it has to be very narrow and close to the reality. In fact, every year during the general assembly you will have among with all the building owner, you will have the accountancy and the details of all the expenses which are related to the building. And if so, then you will have the for the building itself, then you will have for your property, and in this and you will be receiving a summary where you will see all the expenses you had and eventually those who are going to come, and you will have a column who says charge récupérable or charge locative. And this is a portion, it's like the syndic already do the math for you. So you just have to take this amount and divide it by 12, and then you will put that on each month. You will add that on what the tenant will pay as a rent. So it's important to have, when you don't have the details, especially when you just own the place and everything, it's important to try to have the best and the more accurate amount, because then we'll talk about that later. You may have to reimburse some amounts if you don't have a correct one. So it's better to, from the beginning, to have that. Usually when you pass through an agent, they will, of course, make the request in order to verify and to ask you the correct charge. Sometimes they don't have it, so they may give an average amount, but it's not magic, and it has to be based on really what was the expenses.
Well, all I can say is what you just said and described. I can't imagine that document would be less than 20, 30, 40, 50 pages.
In fact, yes, what the syndic is sending, like the minutes of the General Assembly, is like a very large it's like a very large document. But the page where you have for your property the details and the column, it will be very simple. It's on one page, and you will have it. Some syndic will have on their trimester documentation, they will have it also by trimester, but today it's still rare to have this amount by trimester. So when you own the place, try to get, and even if it's the charge récupérable from the past year, take it and we can use it, even though, because the charges of a building will not change they will change but lightly. It will not change from a year to another with like double or triple. It doesn't exist. It's like if the syndic does correctly the job for the math, then there is no problem on
the calculations. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And I guess so sometimes I have people who say that they have whatever, as like they want to rent an apartment, they're looking for something for a few months or a year or whatever. And they say that they've got a budget of whatever amount with charges included. So what do they actually mean? When they say that, are they saying charges including the building charges, or are they saying charges like, I don't know, your electricity bill or your gas bill? I don't understand.
Yes, I often have that, especially from people from US, maybe because we work with different way. Usually people are asking for utilities included. And in fact, when we say that in France, utilities, we really mean the utilities of the building. Not electricity will never be included except if you do vacation rentals. It will be the exception. And then it should be written in the lease to say, okay, the amount is electricity included, but this is like it's really rare. I have like maybe one or two apartments where we could have that, but it was because of the way the apartment was done. Maybe sometimes you have apartments who split 1 meters for two apartments, but then the other make like a global thing. But this is not the case. Like if you are a tenant or an owner and you want to know what are the utilities is for us. Our charges will be only the building charges, and everything else would be on the side.
Okay. Yeah, because you often hear in French the terminology charge compris, charges included. Okay. Well, I'll just have to tell all those Anglophones out there that does not include your electricity or your internet for that matter. Usually, unless, it's something special. We'll be right back with Paris, a State of Mind after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, a State of Mind. Okay, are the recoverable charges the same whether the apartment is a furnished rental or non-furnished?
Yes, because the building charge doesn't change if you put some furnitures or not. It will be pretty much the same. But on your lease, when you're on the tenant or the owner side, and if you want to put and to write the lease, then of course you will have to precise if internet will be included, or for example the water, which will be another topic later on, or for example the heat, if it's a collective heat, for example. But basically there is no difference between for the building charge between furnished and unfurnished apartment.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess. Yes, I think I understand that. So we talked a lot about recoverable charges. Are there also charges that the owner does not have the right to ask the tenant to pay? Because then, it can get out of hand. It's like, well, you mentioned the roof or maybe cleaning the facade of the building and things like that's the owner's charges. But really, are there other things?
In fact, it's really, we can talk about that in the next episode, because I think we have to do an episode and part 2 of that. But yes, for the charges, the owner has to charge only what is on the charge récupérable, and eventually the other kind of taxes that we mentioned in the previous episode. So I guess that next time we'll talk about the other portion, like on the calculation, on the way we do for some exception with water or with heat and everything. What do you think?
Okay, that's probably a good idea, because otherwise we might put people to sleep by talking too much. So that was an interesting episode, and you're definitely right that I think episode 2 we'll have to discuss this in more details, but I definitely learned some stuff in this, that there are certain things that maybe owners don't realize that they can get back from their renters, and renters don't realize that owners maybe have the right to charge them certain things, and as long as everything is, of course, justified and so on and so forth. Okay, I think I get it. That, I think, sums it up quite easily. Well, thanks for that information, Marie.
Thank you very much. And so talk to you very soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Thanks for listening to Paris, a State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Lokim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, a State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.